Welcome back to vsoldier.com. You're listening as always to vsoldier, and today we're going to continue on my strategies series of videos by looking at another strategy which has become apparent the more of the game that I actually play. So you join me at the moment. I'm in a parking space on the side of the A3 or Autobahn 3 through Switzerland. I've not long left Zurich, and I have a load of packaged food at 16 tons, paying me £8,406, and it's going to Luxembourg. It's a load that I've been looking for a while, and now I've got one, and it all fits in quite nice. I thought I'd fire up the recorder and we could check it out together, and I can tell you about this new strategy, which is big tanks and cheap diesel. Everybody loves big tanks and cheap diesel. Now, you wouldn't have thought that a game could get quite as in-depth as creating different price tiers for diesel. I mean, you'd think you would be given like a central account to work with, and wherever you fuel up and however often you fuel up obviously just gets charged to that central account. But it doesn't look to work that way. I mean, as we leave Switzerland and head into France, just for instance, there will be a price difference between the fuel in Switzerland and the fuel in France. It might only be a penny or two, but you can be sure... Oh, wrong lane. Let him go. You can be sure that there will be a price difference. For instance, I fueled in, I think it was Germany, and I paid upwards of £1.16 a litre. And yet, when I fuel in Poland, for instance, I'm only paying 91 pence a litre. Now, we're getting up towards 20 pence a litre cheaper, and when I've got 1600 litre tanks on this truck. So when you're buying fuel that much, 20 pence a litre can make a massive difference. I mean, we're getting upwards of 22-23% higher just for fueling up in one place than we are for fueling up in another. So, I mean, this harks back again, fair play to SCS Software. They've created an accurate simulation of what would be going through a driver's mind. Let's hit the C button and let the cruise control take the strain. What would be going through a driver's mind as he goes about his business. Obviously he's aware of the truck he drives, he's aware of how big the tanks are, and even before he sets off on a journey, he'll probably already have a fair idea in his mind where he's going to fuel throughout his journey. And the same logic can be applied to this game. It doesn't really matter if you've, for instance, specified a 6-wheel tractor unit, so 3 axles. Just goes without saying, you don't have the chassis space to hang huge tanks off it. So, really speaking, you're gonna have to buy diesel sort of wherever it's needed. But going back to my first strategies video, which was buying a truck which was 4x2 and hanging huge tanks on it, that gives us lots of options. I can't remember whether this is an overtaking zone or not, so I shall just sit tight for a minute. So with the big tanks, that gives us lots of options to be able to look for where the cheapest diesel is and try and plan my work around visiting those countries. Now, in real life, as a truck driver, we'd be perhaps hauling steel out of Port Talbot Steelworks and taking it all over Europe. So it went without saying then that as our journey was planned, we would be already making decisions as to where we were going to buy our fuel from. And the boss wanted us, obviously, to buy it as cheaply as possible. Now, that often meant going 60, 70, 80 kilometres, so that's sort of 30 to 40 miles out of our way. If we weren't actually going to Luxembourg, we would make a point of going out of our way. Oh, wrong lane again. Make a point of going out of our way just to make sure we got near to Luxembourg, because that was always, like, not a little bit, but head and shoulders cheaper than anywhere else in Europe. And there are other countries where the opposite would be said. So if we were going to Italy, which had some of the most expensive diesel in Europe, the advice always was, make sure you are fully fueled before you cross the Italian border, and carry out all your work inside Italy on diesel, which we'd perhaps bought in France or even in Luxembourg. And some of the Dutch and Belgian companies I worked for, they had it well sorted out, and all of their trucks would carry enough diesel to get them to and from Luxembourg, allowing them to undertake the entire journey as cheaply as possible. And that gave them a huge operating advantage over their competitors, because conversely we could do the same from the UK. If we were going to, for instance, we had a regular delivery to the Ford factory at Saarlouis in Germany, and to get to Saarlouis from South Wales would naturally take us through Luxembourg. So if you had the right axle setups and the right tractor unit configuration, I could fuel up at Luxembourg, drive to Saarlouis and unload, come back to Luxembourg on my way back, fuel up again, bloody hell, wrong button again, and then do another entire round trip on cheap Luxembourg diesel. And those operators that had the facility to do this were saving a huge amount of money. I think the diesel in Luxembourg at one stage was perhaps 35 or 40 pence per litre cheaper than it was around the rest of Europe. And obviously that made a massive difference to your operating overhead. So carrying that same logic into a simulation such as Euro Truck Simulator, it's fair. I need to go in here because I've pulled off the motorway because I'm not sure what country I'm in. So I'm going to buy, there we are, £1.15. We're certainly not in Luxembourg. Okay, so let's pull back out of there, carry on our merry way, and head on up to Luxembourg. where I will fuel up my ginormous, thank you, my ginormous fuel tanks, and hopefully make a saving over the £1.15 that garage was trying to charge us. So I hope you bear with us. Luxembourg's not that far away, and in the meantime perhaps you can enjoy the scenery. In the trailer we've got a tilt trailer on the back, which is loaded, as mentioned, with packaged food. It's certainly not as light as I would like it. This one's carrying about 16 tons. I try and pick my work to fit between sort of 8 and 12 tons. So this one went a little bit over, but my diesel tank is such that I had fuel left for about 2,000 kilometers. So even if I didn't go to Luxembourg on this trip, I needed to be as close as I possibly could get it, so that if necessary that meant going off the route advisor and finding my way to Luxembourg just to draw fuel. But thankfully from Zurich there seemed to be quite a bit of work going over to Luxembourg, so I didn't have any trouble at all finding any. Something a bit lighter would have been nice. Not that it matters, it just burns less diesel. As my big 700 horsepower Volvo just doesn't slow down. I mean, it just doesn't slow down. So yeah, so there we are. This is the this is how sort of in depth and how much thought you can get into just playing a game. I mean, when we get down to wanting to let's dive into this one. Well, this is a toll road, so clearly we're still in France. And inch forward to get through the toll. Your own time. There we are. £23. Cha-ching. And off we go again. So let me just give you a little bit of the backstory into my Euro Truck Simulator 2 career so far. I started off, as anybody who's checked out my other videos will know, I started off with a single small garage in Cardiff in South Wales. I worked as a hire and reward driver to build myself some money until I was in a position to buy my first truck. I opted for the Volvo FH12 only because it offered me the engine upgrade that I was looking for, because I wanted a huge engine. And from that point forth things have happened pretty quickly. I've since bought another garage, which is out in Szczecin in Poland. I bought 3 bog standard out the crate FH16s, which came with the standard 540 brake horsepower engine. I employed 3 drivers, and now those trucks are plying their trade, and whilst some are doing better than others, thankfully they're starting to show a small profit at this stage, which is nice. I say some are better than others. I mean, there's I had one driver who just seemed to find it difficult to find a load back to Shenzhen, so he'd run back empty. Obviously that's not a strategy that's going to go down well with anybody who's running a transport company. The last thing you want is absolutely any empty miles, because every one of those empty miles is costing you the price of the diesel plus all your fixed costs, etc, etc. So the key is, there we are, we're in Luxembourg now. So the key is to try and minimize entirely, if you can do it. Oops, wrong lane. Try and minimize entirely any empty running at all, because every time you're running your truck empty, it's costing you money. And in this game, it's simply not necessary. It's just not necessary. There always seems, well, there's always work, no matter where it's going. So by planning your strategy and having the diesel to, I can work for a week entirely before I have to consider buying diesel, and that gives me a certain latitude to do things on the cheap, including buying my diesel. So that's what I try and do now, is I try and plan all my routes around the cheapest diesel, wherever that may be. So that takes a little bit of discovering. You only find it by stopping into garages and finding out what they're charging for diesel, and then using that information to help you run a profitable transport organisation. So that's where we're at. We've got 2 garages, we've got 4 trucks in total, and now it's just a case, zoom in a minute, now it's just a case of trying to do it all as profitably and as efficiently as possible. It doesn't help things, the fact that I keep pranging this truck. I pranged it before I'd even coupled the trailer up to it, and I have a nasty habit of paying for repairs in the garage and then pranging it on the way to pick up a trailer. So my tractor unit always seems to have damage on it at the moment. It's got damage on it at the moment as well. So coming to Luxembourg is another good thing, because this is where my Volvo garage is. This is where I buy my trucks. So here we are at LKW, or LKW as they're called in Germany. Here's our parking bay. So I think first things first, let's get rid of this trailer, and then we can get the truck fixed at the garage, and then we'll see what work's going where with the primary aim of the mission to come to Luxembourg to fill up my massive tanks with diesel, which will hopefully allow me to operate quite cheaply for the next week or so. There we are, job completed. Boom, 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 boom. So let me carry on doing all this, and I'll stop the recording now, and then I'll come back when we get to the fuel garage and we'll see how we're getting on. Do bear with me. Welcome back. So after having dived into Luxembourg, unloaded my load of, I think it was packaged food, diving into the garage to get any outstanding damage covered, picking up a new load, which is a 25-ton load. So much for my strategy on light loads, eh? It's a 25-ton load going to Groningen in Holland, and it's paying £11,527. So I've swapped over. I've got my new trailer load of furniture on, and I'm just approaching the border between Luxembourg and Germany, Luxembourg and Belgium, I beg your pardon. And I've stopped for diesel, and if you remember back at the other side of the Luxembourg border in France, when I stopped to check out the price of the fuel, it was £1.15. Here we are in Luxembourg, and it's only 94 pence a litre, which is, it's a big saving. I mean, let's see how much money I'm going to spend. Stop the engine, you fool. There we go. Let's fill it all the way up. It's going to take about perhaps 12 or 1300 litres, I think. All that money going up in smoke. Oh, there we are, just under 1,000 litres. So that was £876. Now, if you add up that just under 1,000 litres, paying an extra, what we got, 6 pence to the pound, so an extra 20 pence a litre for buying it in France. And that's just going to make a massive difference to your bottom line. It really is. I mean, it's the difference between a driver's wages and not paying a driver's wages. It's that much money. So do check out the different fuel prices in different countries, and depending on obviously how you've set your truck up, if you've got the fuel carrying capacity, do look out for the cheaper diesel. Because it's going to make a huge difference to how much money your business makes. So, with that, I guess it's time for us to get up the road to Groningen in Holland and get this load of diesel delivered. So, I won't bore you with the drive. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for checking out my strategies series, and do stay tuned for the next one.